On a mission to help people discover, protect, and share true financial independence, welcome in to the GenWealth Radio Hour. And if you're watching our show online, we're glad to have you along. My name is Scott Inman, along with me, GenWealth co-founder John Shrewsbury, as we check out some current topics making news or getting attention, or in this world, getting likes on social media. We're going to talk about a few of those things and give you our opinion in our new What's Happening segment. You saw the intro there. It's our new format for the radio hour. The Get Ready for the Future show still happening as well on the radio side and online as well. And this is your first time in the saddle on the new
Yeah, I was just going to say you're a brave soul, because I have not done this before, and I'll try to keep us on track.
Well, the thing I'm looking forward to most, if there's anybody on the team that has a stronger opinion than you, I don't know. So you're going to have some strong opinions in this segment.
I probably will.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, and it is, by the way, for our video audience, I can't help but notice that for me, it has officially entered quarter zip weather here in Arkansas, but not for John. So I must be more cold-natured than you.
No, you're not more cold-natured than me. I just haven't had an opportunity to go to the storage building to get my stuff that I stored for the winter.
Yeah.
But I'll probably be doing that on my way back home today.
We just went right into winter today.
Yes, we did.
I don't know what happened.
Really crazy.
I'd like to bring back some 70s. Maybe we'll get that next week. All right, so what we do is our marketing team kind of peruses social media, online news, that type of stuff as it pertains to financial matters, retirement matters, Social Security, whatever, the topics that we discuss on a regular basis on the show. And then they pick some things for us to talk about and kind of get our take on what's being said. And sometimes we're in pretty much full agreement with what's going on in that content. And then sometimes we kind of go, not so sure about that. So one of the things that got our marketing team's attention this week was on a social media account called Basic Financial Literacy. 3 numbers that decide if your money lasts or runs out too soon. So those 3 numbers are your tax rate, your guaranteed income, and your withdrawal rate. Now, if you're picking 3, there are probably more than that, but if you're picking 3, I'm going to say those are pretty good ones to pick.
Yeah, they are. But let's kind of go back and look at the premise of all of this, because I think this is where there's just so much fear mongering these days.
Yeah.
Anytime you give everybody a microphone and a podium, they're going to stir up fear. And this post talks about even people with $1 million to $2 million saved worry about running out of money.
Yeah.
Well, they should, because you can run yourself out of money no matter how much money you have. I don't know if Elon Musk can spend all of his money, but that's an outlier. But let's talk about this fear of running out of money. I think that there was a study way back when that said people that are getting ready to retire fear running out of money more than they fear death. Well, I think they fear all of that, Scott, because either they spend too much, or they don't have a plan, or they have a plan and they spend too much, because we have a few of those too.
Yeah.
But I think that oftentimes people get really kind of down a tunnel thinking about their money, where they think, oh, well, I'm just going to go it alone. I'm going to save a few pennies and not talk to a financial advisor. But then the reality of the markets and the sequence of return risk and all of that type of thing comes into play. I think they've kind of, these are good areas that you want to take a look at, but I think that they missed a big one in terms of sequence of return risk, because I think that really can drive you running out of money more so than some of these other things.
Yeah, you think about that. If you're fully invested or mostly invested in the market with your 1.2 million, a 10%, 20% downturn takes a whole lot more from a real dollar perspective out of your portfolio than it does with somebody with a lot less. So I think the survey piece to this, people with 1 to 2 million, I don't know that he even really sourced a survey on where he gets this, but even people with 1 to 2 million saved worry about running out of money. To me, that highlights that what the communication is to someone reading that is, oh my gosh, I'm screwed if I've got less than $1 million, or man, I better have more than $2 million. And I don't know that that's the right takeaway, because we get so locked in to the number. I need 1 million. I need 2 million. I need 3 million. What is the number for me? Well, the number for you is not the same as the number for somebody down the street, across town, in a different state. You've got cost of living changes from state to state. You've got income needs that are different for you than they are for other people. And, to your point, John, can you spend all of your money if you have $2 million, $3 million? Absolutely. My dad told me years ago that you can always spend more than you make.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got to learn to not do that. Now, the thing is, for me and for clients that I work with, and I think you would echo this, if you have exhibited the discipline over your work life to save $1 or $2 million, you're probably not in a high spending mode. So you're probably set up in a good place to not outspend or outlive your money as long as you have a plan.
Yes, as long as you have a plan and you don't blow up that plan. I can remember not too long ago, one of our clients called in and said, they wanted to take $50,000 out of their account, just willy-nilly,
Yeah.
no heads up, no reason, no plan about it or anything. And I sent back the message and I said, okay, do they want to understand how that impacts their plan? Nope, they don't want to understand it. They just wanted the money.
Yeah.
Okay, go your own way and do your own thing. I guess that's what you got to do. But I think that you have to think about this as an asset that you've got to take care of and use in a very judicious way. What does that mean? That means that you have a plan. It doesn't mean that you can't make those big expenditures. It means that you need to talk about those big expenditures and plan for them ahead of time, and then go ahead and execute on it if the plan allows you to do so. Oftentimes when markets are really good like they are right now, people go, man, my balances are way up. I want to go in and get some money and go do something. And that may be a thing that you can do. It may not be a thing that you can do depending upon what your spending rate already is. Mm-hmm. If you are spending too much money on your plan, then you could be in a situation where you could run out of money even though you do have a plan. But I think that one of the points here, Scott, is they talk about guaranteed income. Yep. What your Social Security is very foundational to your plan. If you have a pension, then that's very foundational to your plan. You're not going to outspend Social Security and pension because they don't have a lump sum that you can go get. They're just going to give you a check every month, and that check is going to be guaranteed to you throughout the rest of your life. We look to provide guaranteed income to people that meets their basic living expenses. That's what we do here at GenWealth. So we combine pension, if you have it, Social Security, most people have it, with maybe annuitized income that would allow for the provision of enough income for you to meet your basic needs. So can you run out of your basic need money in a GenWealth plan? The answer is probably not, because that's what your basic needs are based on. Now, can you run out of the withdrawal money above and beyond your basic needs? Sure you can, depending upon how aggressive you are at hitting those accounts with big lump sum withdrawals.
Yeah, so the bottom line here, the numbers that you need are your own. What is your income? What are your assets? How can they provide that monthly income to you? Some of it may need to be guaranteed, and then the discretionary income providing raises over time. Know your numbers by planning, and don't worry about getting too fearful about what everybody else is doing or what the average is, for sure. All right, another one for us. Some good inflation news this week. Some relief. We got the inflation numbers in just recently for September, and prices went up 3% year over year as compared to 2.9% in August. They went up 0.2% month over month. So once again, and I get frustrated reading the financial news on this too, because a lot of times there's still, it ticked up. Yeah, 0.1% to the average inflation rate, really probably a little bit below the long-time average inflation rate. We're running inflation right now at historical averages. That's the bottom line. Now, is there a cumulative effect since 2021? Yeah, absolutely. And are people still struggling to make ends meet? Absolutely. But the inflation rate as it stands right now is in a pretty good place. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay there. I can't predict the future on how tariffs are going to impact that, and that's getting a lot of discussion right now. So far, it has not made a major impact on prices. Doesn't mean it won't in the future. But the other piece to that is it's hard to really put a bead on, because the tariff situation, the tariff environment changes on the regular because the president is using it mostly as a negotiating tactic, so it doesn't stay in place in many cases for very long. So we don't know where that's going. But the point here of this article with the good inflation news is it does say, but the Fed is flying blind from here. And that's an interesting point. The reason they say that is because of the government shutdown, which is about to reach a month old now. The data that they are used to getting is not coming in because it's not the workers that are on that data are not working right now because of the government shutdown. Now, they got the inflation data because they had to for the Social Security cost of living adjustment that will be applied in January. That's a law. So we got that, but we don't really know, and may not for a while, the economic data beyond that.
Yeah, I think the Fed has got a lot on their plate, obviously, and obviously we are having a slowdown of the economy. The economy hasn't gone into a recession or anything, but we are having a slowdown, and that has paved the way for at least one more interest rate cut, which is likely to be happening right after this show. I think that's pretty well baked in. Now, I don't think the Fed's going to tip its hand until they get some more information on what they might do for a December rate cut, if they do anything. But again, I think that until we get some clarity on what's going on, and things are not nearly as simple as they appear to be, Scott. Most people reacted when the tariffs all cropped up in April. The stock market reacted in a big way, went down a bunch, and people reacted, it's going to be inflationary. They didn't take into account several factors. One of those factors is that the currency of other countries actually offset that because the currencies devalued when that when that tariff went into play. And so you've had a lot of things actually get absorbed into the economy. There were some companies that actually absorbed those extra costs, didn't pass the extra cost on to the consumer because they didn't think they could. Yeah. So it's way more of a complex situation than, tariffs are going to raise prices, boom, that's just it. Yeah. I don't think that that's the case, but I do think that the Fed is in a little bit of a strange place because they don't have data to hang on to. Yeah. Maybe they should just kind of maybe look up and take a sampling of commentary out in the public. At GenWealth, I do things oftentimes, I call it management by walking around. Mm-hmm. I go to different offices and I go by different desks of people and find out kind of what's going on. And that's really how I know what the beat of this company is and how we need to manage things from an executive standpoint here. Oftentimes, I think that Fed people look too much at reports and all of that type of thing, and they don't get out amongst the public and find out really what is going on. I think we saw that oftentimes when they were raising interest rates and people were going, hey, that's enough. Yeah. That's enough. They kept reading the data, kept raising interest rates. So I don't know how they obviously they've got to resolve things in Washington to get people working again so that data can come in. But I don't know how the Fed does it otherwise unless they really just get out amongst the public and listen to what's going on.
Well, we talked about the fear baked into the last topic that we talked about. There's a lot of fear out there right now, too, with inflation. Is it really going back up? As John's talked about, the unemployment rate is ticking up. The economy is slowing down. But look at the stock market. The stock market is still rising and hitting all-time highs. And there's this confluence of two schools of thought. Well, if the economy is slowing down and things are not great, why does the market keep going up and up and up? And I actually had a guy who was at a party on Saturday night ask me, hey, is it time to get out? And I'm like, it's never time to get all out of the stock market. You have to have a piece of that, and you can't try to time the market because it's time in the market, not timing the market, as we've said many times on this show. So I think the takeaway here with all economic data, with all economic data, John, is you have to still stay the course, stick to your plan. Now, it may mean that you diversify, especially if your time horizon to retirement is closing in. Maybe you do get out of the market with a piece of your portfolio, tweak your overall investment strategy, but it's never time to let what might happen or what you think might happen affect your overall investment strategy on that large of a scale. Because is a recession coming? Yes. I can say with confidence a recession is coming, and we're a day closer than we were yesterday. But I don't know when it's going to start. I don't know when.
Well, and the GenWealth Ready to Retire process is built for times like this when things are uncertain because it is highly diversified, it is time segmented along your retirement, and it is built to try to help ease some of the concerns about running out of money before you run out of time.
Yeah, so if you're in the retirement red zone 10 years or less away from retirement, that is a great time to start looking at your investment strategy in general, regardless of where we are currently in the economic environment or where you fear that the market is going to take a downturn. And just because, by the way, just because it's hitting all-time highs doesn't mean it's about to go down. It's hit a lot of all-time highs in any given year, most given years, in fact. So it's not time to panic or to get worried about the market. It is time to look at your investment strategy in relation to where you are on your journey to true financial independence and get with a financial advisor to work out a long-term plan for you. I had really no belief that we would stick to only 2 topics today and before we run out of time. Now, maybe I should have, since I teed you up.
Are you saying you're over-prepared?
No, I did. Well, no, our marketing team gives us plenty. I didn't prepare any of this. They give us plenty of data to work on, and I guess we'll probably be moving a little bit of that on to the next show because we are out of time for our What's Happening segment. It is time next for the Get Ready for the Future show.
You've been sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Helping people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. This is the Get Ready for the Future show, coming to you from the 6th floor of 3 Financial Center in West Little Rock. Glad to have you along as we answer your questions about finance, your money, investing, Social Security, retirement. Whatever you want to ask us, you can send in a question by texting it or leaving a voicemail at the following number, 501-381-5228. Write that number down, 501-381-5228, and get it into us, and we can get it on the air in a future Get Ready for the Future show. John Shrewsbury, one of GenWealth's co-founders, is with me today to answer your questions, and we are ready to dive in with Stephanie from Little Rock. I'm 66 and planning to downsize next year. We'll have about $200,000 left over after the move. Should we invest it or use it to generate income? Downsizing can free up a lot of cash, but what do you do with it And what you do with it next determines whether you can add some peace or pressure to your situation. So the first issue here is we have to talk about taxes. And we are certainly not CPAs, but we know the rules around that. So we don't know, based on Stephanie's question, John, whether the $200,000 left over is after any possible taxation, or if she's already done the planning necessary to know she's not going to have any taxation on that. And it could be that is possible, because if she's leaving her primary residence and moving into a new primary residence, she may not have a taxation issue.
Yeah, capital gains on a primary resident are generally not taxable. Up to a certain limit. But the IRS has very specific rules on this. So here's a breakdown of when a gain is taxable. You can exclude up to $250,000 of gain if you're single. You can exclude $500,000 if you're married and filing jointly. So in most cases, for most people that are listening to this show, you're never going to have an issue of a taxable capital gain on the sale of your residence, unless maybe you're single and you live in a really nice house and it really did appreciate in the market run-up of houses that we had earlier this decade. But I think that to qualify for the exclusion on the capital gains, there are some qualifiers here that I think you need to pay attention to. One is the ownership test, and that ownership test is you must have owned the home for at least 2 years out of the last 5 years prior to the sale. Then the use test comes into play. Did you live in the home as your primary residence for at least 2 years out of the last 5? And if you haven't claimed the exclusion on another home in the last 2 years, then you're in pretty good shape. If all of those rules are met, then you don't have a tax on the capital gain. Now, what we really don't know from Stephanie's question, Scott, is whether or not she used any of that money to actually get into another home and there is $200,000 left over, or whether she's renting and she just has $200,000. We don't really know the particulars, so I don't want to give Stephanie specific tax advice in this, but I do think that the old adage of talk to your tax advisor about your situation so he clearly understands what the circumstances are. Now, from there, we can talk about what you do with the money.
Yeah. So once you've determined how much you'll actually have after taxes, and by the way, this is a great opportunity for people in retirement who maybe have not saved enough for retirement and know they don't want to keep up with as much home moving forward to really create some more assets for their retirement. So it is a perfect catalyst to your retirement income once you've dealt with that tax situation. And I would also say, too, you're also creating after-tax money, so you have to really think about how you're going to invest that. So the first step is to look closely at your plan for retirement income. So there implies you have a plan for retirement income.
Yes,
so Stephanie,
absolutely.
Yeah, if you don't have one, you need to get one. So do you need or want more income? So you think about your retirement income plan, and if you're downsizing, there's probably a really good opportunity to lower your monthly expenses. Is your guaranteed income from things like Social Security and potentially a pension going to be enough to cover your basic necessities? And then take a look at what you have already saved for retirement and create an investment strategy to provide you with discretionary monthly income on top of that. And as we kind of alluded to in our past segment, you also have to stay invested in growth assets with a piece of your investment strategy so you can provide increases to that income over time. So if you're running up short of the runway on that, or maybe you just want to create a more robust retirement for you and your spouse, then it may be a great opportunity to use these assets that you have after taxes to incorporate into your retirement income plan.
Scott, most people in this country are what we would call constrained investors. They are people who have enough money to retire, but they don't have a whole lot of margin of error. $200,000 is a lot of margin for error. So there could be an opportunity to safeguard the plan that you have to give you more breathing room, so to speak, about providing that regular, predictable monthly income that you are going to live on, that you have your basic expenses tied to, and some of the discretionary spending that you have there. Here's another area that I think that someone in this situation has got to be careful is do not forget about inflation. We've been talking about inflation a lot lately. Inflation became real just a few years ago when the inflation rate blew through the roof, was in the 8, 9, 10% range for a period of time. It's now calmed way back down to about 3%, but those prices are still high. And there will be higher prices to come at some point in time in the future. This tepid inflation that we have right now may or may not last. It may last a short time. It may last a long time. But your plan has got to be prepared for you to increase your income over time. Scott, we are regularly seeing people, and I know this probably happens with you and Tim here in the West Little Rock office. People come in and saying, hey, I'd like to get maybe an extra $500 a month or something like that, just to kind of keep up with the cost of living.
Yeah, it does happen very frequently, and the plan is built to provide that on an annual basis if needed, and they may be 3 years into retirement before they ask for it, but the plan is built to create it for them. So you don't want to be in a situation where you have to tell a client that you can't take that extra $500 a month. So building a plan that implements inflation-adjusted raises throughout time is key to that, because I think that's one of the, I would say it's the most common thing that is overlooked when people come into the office for the first time and have been thinking about retirement. Maybe they've even been thinking about how much they can withdraw from their assets. They oftentimes forget the inflation piece to that when they're looking at their withdrawal rate. So, Stephanie, I would say that's the big piece. And then if you don't need it or want it to generate additional retirement income, there are other ways or other things to consider, whether it's an inheritance, whether it's setting aside some money for potential health care costs or long-term care costs in the future. If you don't have insurance to protect you against that, you can bulletproof your plan by using those assets as a one-off bucket of money that is there in case you need it, or it could be passed on to the next generation.
Yeah, I think that oftentimes the way that you invest really depends on what the outcome is that you're looking for in that. If it's that next generation that's going to have it, then you can invest it a lot more ambitiously, I would say, than you might do if you were going to use it for retirement income.
Want more free info about retirement, investments, and your money? You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just look for GenWealth Financial Advisors on YouTube for all of our latest videos. Next up on the Get Ready for the Future show, we have Dante via email. My spouse and I disagree on how much we need to retire. I think we're fine with $1 million. She's convinced we need $2 million. Who's right, and how do we find out? Well, I think maybe Dante hasn't been reading that social media post that we talked about earlier, that he's not worried about being short with $1 or $2 million. When retirement goals clash, the solution shouldn't be a guess. It is a plan. So we're going to talk about how to settle the debate with math, not emotion. You know, John, again, it goes back to this observation that people have that if I reach a certain level of wealth or level of assets, then I'm good. But there's really no other information typically around that other than, hey, I think we can't outlive this.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of tongue-in-cheek blame Voya for this number thing, because they used to have a commercial where people were carrying around cut out numbers on their shoulder of their retirement balance.
Yep.
And they would look at each other and kind of compare with each other's number. And this game of comparison really has us locked in on a lump sum number, somehow assuring us that everything's going to be okay in retirement. Look, folks, I've been doing this for a long period of time. Our company's been in existence for 20 years. We have people that are very comfortable and happily retired on less than $1 million. We have people that are retired on $3 million and are worried to death because they are spending money as fast as we can send it to them. And so there are varying degrees of comfort level, not dependent upon the lump sum number, but dependent upon your investment discipline, your spending discipline, the plan and how you have things arranged, and whether you have sources of guaranteed income that will take up a good percentage of the overall spending that you're doing. If those things are in play, then you don't have to worry about running out of money before you run out of time, because those guarantees will kind of negate that whole worry thing. What you do have to worry about is running out of money to adjust that income for inflation, because by and large, pensions are not inflation adjusted unless you work for the government, and they do get an inflation adjustment. And Social Security does get an inflation adjustment, but oftentimes that's eaten up by the rising cost of your Medicare premiums. And oftentimes guaranteed income from an annuity will not adjust for inflation. So you have to have another bucket of money over there, so to speak, to boost the overall income that you have for inflation. If you go and spend that money before inflation actually hits, you may not have enough to offset inflation going forward.
It's not about how much you save. It's about how you're going to spend in retirement. There is no doubt about it. And, I can't help but think when I read Dante's question, when he thinks he's fine with $1 million and his spouse thinks they need $2 million, there's going to be, I don't know where you are right now, Dante, but if you're close to $1 million and you're wanting to retire, and your wife thinks that you need to get to $2 million, you might be too young to think about retiring too. That's a good piece to this, because when it comes to retirement income, that's a big movement in this country right now. I think the acronym is FIRE, right? Financially Independent Retire Early, or is that the acronym? A lot of people think they're going to retire in their 40s, and I'm not saying you can't, but you've got to have a substantial amount of assets. There is such a long time of providing income prior to reaching levels where you can access, or ages where you can access guaranteed income. That's the big piece here, because you think about it, whether you need $1 million or $2 million to retire comfortably depends on your spending, but it also depends greatly on how much guaranteed income you're going to have. If you have 2 Social Security checks and a pension, you won't need as many assets, more than likely, than the guy down the road who's living single on 1 Social Security check. So, and if you can't get your Social Security check until you're 62, and unless you work for a public entity, you likely can't access a pension until after 60 or so. So retiring before that becomes a greater challenge, because if you're going to live on a consistent income stream, your withdrawal rate on your assets is likely to be very large.
We all very clearly know that longevity is a factor for people who are retiring at a normal retirement age. People are living into their 90s. We just had a discussion in our advisor training meeting yesterday about how we need to think about longevity and all of the things that go into that. But when you think about retiring early, in your 50s or 40s or whatever number that you want to hang your retirement plan on, then you just have blown that longevity thing out the window, because now you're having to stretch that rubber band over a great number of years. And the high likelihood, if you go much more further than the normal retirement age, then you either got to have a lot of money or you got to have a lot of elasticity, and you could make that rubber band pop, so to speak, which is the analogy to you running out of money before you run out of time.
I'm 52 right now, so you've convinced me. I'm going to make a pledge to you. I'm not retiring in my 50s.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I being your financial advisor, I would advise you not to do that.
Not a good idea. This is the question of the week, Dante. It's a great question. We love it. A lot of people wondering about it. How much do you need to retire? Making a plan is the only way to get that answer. And we're going to send you a Get Ready for the Future show tumbler as being named, or for being named, the question of the week. We just need you to send us an email to show@getreadyforthefuture.com to claim it. And you could get a Get Ready for the Future show tumbler. If you'd like to send in a question and it is named question of the week, we'll send you one. We just would ask that you send those questions to us through our phone number, 501-381-5228. It's 501-381-5228. You can leave a voicemail, or you can just text it to us, and we'll use your question on the air in a future show. Our next question is from Pat and Bryant. I'm 61 and recently inherited an IRA from my brother. I've heard the rules are different for inherited IRAs now. What do I need to know? Inherited IRAs come with a clock in certain circumstances, and if you don't understand the rules, you could get hit with a big tax bill. Yep, you are right, Pat. The inherited IRA rules have changed. It changed about 5 years ago with the Secure Act. In the past, the next generation to receive an inherited IRA was able to take RMDs based on their age. So if as I just mentioned my age, so we'll use it again. If I'm 52 and I inherited an IRA from my parents, in the past, I only had to take out a minimal amount every year in an RMD, which stands for Required Minimum Distribution. and I could do that based on my life expectancy. So at 52, I still have a pretty good life expectancy, so it was a small amount. But that law that passed in 2020 changed a lot of rules around retirement. And now the rule states an inherited IRA by the next generation, and that generation is described as 10 years or more younger than the person who passed away, then you have to take it all out in 10 years. Big tax grab by the government, by the IRS. So if you don't spend that money down in your lifetime, you are passing to your children a huge tax bomb. But that's not what she's asking here, John. She's asking about an IRA from her brother. So the first question I would ask her, how old was your brother in comparison to you? Because if she was less than 10 years, she actually doesn't have to take it out in 10 years.
That's true. The rules are very complex here, and they will bite you very severely if you do not follow these to a T. So let's first of all talk about the account setup, Scott. You cannot roll your brother's IRA into your IRA. You have to have a separate account. It is called a beneficiary IRA or an inherited IRA, but that's kind of an interchangeable term. You must establish an inherited IRA titled in the name of the deceased and you as the beneficiary. So for instance, in this case, it would be Pat Smith. Let's say Pat's last name is Smith, John Smith, that's her brother, deceased, IRA for the benefit of Pat Smith. And so that's how you have to set that up. Now, if you are within 10 years of age of your brother, then there is no RMD requirement over that 10-year period of time. There is still an RMD requirement, but it is not the 10 years. It's not the accelerated time frame. It is over your life expectancy. But if you are younger than 10 years, if there's more than 10 years, to be clear, if there's more than 10 years separating your age and your brother's age, then you do have to take the distribution out within a 10-year period of time. There could be no contributions to this IRA. It's got to sit as it is. You can invest it. You can grow the money if you'd like to, but you do have to take those distributions dependent upon the age factor.
Yeah, and so as far as Pat is concerned, I think it is important to look at this inherited IRA and determine the purpose of the money for you. What do you want to do with it? You're 61, so are you already retired? Are you about to retire? Do you need to add these assets to your retirement plan? And if so, you can still work the plan even if there are withdrawals required. So let's say you do fall into the inherited IRA rule and you're going to have to remove that or withdraw all of those funds over 10 years. As you take those funds out, it's not a requirement that they are spent. You can turn right around. I actually have a client that is in this situation. He inherited an IRA from his sister who passed away tragically in a car accident, and he is less than 10 years younger, or was less than 10 years younger than she was. So he does not have to take it all out in 10 years, but he does have to take that RMD. And it's a pretty substantial amount, but they're still working. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to spend all of that money. So they take that withdrawal, that RMD, that required minimum distribution, and then they turn around after it hits their bank account and fund a couple of Roth IRAs for themselves. So you can utilize that money still, even though you have to pay the taxes on it. In their case, they're getting it into a tax-deferred, tax-free withdrawal retirement account for themselves, which is going to benefit them in the long run because they're probably not going to be withdrawing this money still for a decade or more. So It gives it a great amount of time to grow tax deferred and get withdrawn tax free.
Absolutely. And it is very critical that you think about this in the context of your overall spending plan and retirement plan, because if you do reinvest those dollars can be used to provide retirement income, even though they're not in a retirement type account. The fact that you've got that money invested and it's still growing, that can be a source of tax favored income. In other words, you're not going to pay tax on the corpus or the principal that you put in there. You just pay capital gain tax or ordinary income tax on dividends on a non-qualified account when you go to reinvest that money, as Scott's client is currently doing.
All right, we have just a few more minutes on the show. Time for our final question from Jason in Springdale. We're both 56 and still carrying a small mortgage and 2 car payments. Should we prioritize paying those off before retirement or just keep the payments and keep investing? Debt in retirement isn't always a deal breaker, but it can be a deal changer. Let's talk strategy before you send in those extra payments. So, generally it would be great if you could do both. You could accelerate, maybe not pay off with lump sums, but if you could accelerate that debt elimination from your car payments and your mortgage, that would be the best case scenario without pulling away from what you're saving. I think that's a place to start with. And oftentimes, I think the way I would look at this is, when are you going to retire? So you're 56, right? Let's say you're going to retire at age 65. You're both 56, so you're going to retire at the same time. You've got about 9 years. You could create, through an advisor, and we can do this here at GenWealth, a debt elimination schedule so that it can show you how much you would need to pay additionally each month so that you are debt-free when you're 65. That may or may not be an option, but 9 years is a long time to really hammer some debt. So I think that's a good piece that you could do both, right? It doesn't mean you have to rob from Peter to pay Paul here. You could potentially continue to invest. But some other key questions here, John, is to take a look at their mortgage rate and the interest rate on those auto loans.
Yeah, absolutely. The rate is really very important in this situation. If your rates are low, let's say if you still have a 2 or 3% mortgage from back in the day when you could have a mortgage for that low of a rate, paying it off early may not be the best use of your cash. If the rates are high, then paying them off is like earning a guaranteed return equal to that interest rate. And so by paying it off, you are freeing up capital in the future that you don't have to dedicate to from your retirement resources. So if you retire with debt, think about it this way. You have to take $1 out of your retirement plan. You actually have to take probably about $1.30 or $1.35 out of your retirement plan to pay $1 of debt. And when you pay that $1 of debt, you're probably not paying a full $1 on the principal. You're paying some interest on that principal. So it's a losing proposition if you retire with debt. So you want to try to get that paid off before you retire. But if you can't, then you want to have a plan where, as Scott was talking about, it's accelerated over time and you can pay it off fairly quickly and not have to endure that throughout your entire retirement time.
Yeah, we have clients that enter retirement debt-free. We have clients that do enter retirement with a mortgage that we have to plan for that being phased out at some point, maybe 10 years into their retirement plan. So it can be done either way, but I think that's really the priority for me, is to reach retirement with no debt. And the big piece to that is because, as we've already said on this show, and we're going to say it again next week, and we're going to say it again the next week, retirement is an income problem. You have to have income that doesn't exceed what your assets can provide. And I think getting rid of all that debt obviously reduces your basic expenses so that you don't have to draw as much from your retirement assets to provide a larger amount of income. But because Jason has that several year window, I think that's the route I would probably look at going. And, John, you hinted on something too I wanted to circle back to as well as we run out of time here too. Oftentimes, clients will come in a little bit closer on their retirement timeline. Maybe they're a year out, maybe they're less than a year out, and they haven't paid off that mortgage, and they may have $150,000 left on it, and they come in with this idea in their head that they're going to take out the $150,000 from their IRA or 401k and wipe out that mortgage all in one lump sum because they do want to enter retirement mortgage free. And I think that's a great concept to go in with, but the idea here is a bad one because you have to watch the taxes on how much you're pulling out of the IRA.
You've got some income during that time, and if you pull out $150,000 to pay off the house, then that's $150,000 of additional income that you're going to be taxed on, and probably looking at a higher tax bracket. Lots of negative consequences about that, not to mention that you have really hurt your overall retirement income plan because you've taken $150,000 of capital out of that. That money is gone. It's now in an illiquid asset like a house, no way to recover that, no way to bounce back from that, we oftentimes really do kind of raise the caution flag to people who come in with that intention because they don't really appreciate the consequences of that action.
Yeah, some tax planning is due there, right? I mean, you still may be able to take some out, but we want to take a look at if you're making withdrawals from your IRA, what tax bracket is that putting you in? And we don't want to go into the next tax bracket. So maybe it's a 3-year plan to pay off your mortgage. You take those out in installments over 3 years. But even that needs to be done in the context of if we remove that from your retirement assets, what kind of impact does that have on your retirement income? So you want to make sure your retirement income is solidified first before you take out big lump sums. And Jason, I would say that as we wrap up that answer to that question, that goes back to you as well, building that retirement income plan to see if you're trying to determine where to best utilize your cash, whether it's to pay off debt or to continue to invest at your current contribution rate to your retirement. You need to look at those what-if scenarios. What are you currently contributing now, and where is that going to land you from an asset perspective at retirement, and what kind of income will those assets produce? And if you pull back the reins on how much you're investing to divert over and pay off some debt, what kind of impact is that going to have on your overall assets and ultimately your income?
Absolutely.
Well, I think we are about to hit the final bell for final thoughts. I knew I was close. Casey may have hit it an extra second early just because he knew I was dragging it out there.
Anything's possible.
2 minutes left on today's show. That means it is time for our final thoughts. John, what do you have?
Scott, I think as we kind of survey our discussion today, I want to go back to this fear factor. Oftentimes people go into retirement very fearful because they don't have that job, that paycheck, that regular sustenance of money coming into your bank account every month from an employer that's not connected to you. It is all dependent upon you, your resources, your 401k plan, your Social Security, those types of things. And you have concerns. The way that you overcome those concerns is with education and information. How do you do that? You could do it yourself, but the best way to do that is to work alongside a financial advisor so that financial advisor can give you dispassionate information, not cloud it with emotion or anything of that nature, and certainly not get all tied up in all of the fear-mongering that goes on in the media these days. You want to have very clear, very purposeful plans for your money so you can have a very uneventful retirement when it comes to the threat of running out of money before you run out of time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times you're just spitballing, right? If you don't have a plan, you're just kind of giving it a guess, and that's not what you want to do in retirement. There are no do-overs in retirement. You want to get this right. Why would you not step into a relationship with a financial advisor, one that builds a retirement income plan unique to you so that you have a clear path and an understanding of what your money can do for you? If you'd like to walk through the GenWealth Ready to Retire process with us, you can call 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. And that's all the time we have for this week's Get Ready for the Future show. We thank you for joining us. And again, get those questions to us. We love getting the questions from our viewers and listeners. The number's 501-381-5228. You can text or leave a voicemail, and we'll talk to you again next week.
The GenWealth financial team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.